Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Faith Storms. I'm a licensed social worker, therapist, and today I want to share about gems. So I realized today in a session with a client that, I don't think I've ever done a video about gems, about this little really useful personality system that I came across many years ago now at a business training, and it has been invaluable. So the GEM system, it is not my making. I'm simply borrowing it and using it. It was created by a woman named Dani Johnson. Her name is Dani Johnson, if you want to look her up. She does business trainings, and a business I was involved in, it was at one of the trainings for the business that I got introduced to this. So the GEM system for personality has us identify which of 4 different gemstones we connect with the most. And this system of personality has to do with motivation. This is about what is somebody's primary motivation for their behavior. And I write about this in my book, my Sad No More book. This is chapter 4, personality. So if you have my book, you can turn to that. If you don't have my book, you can get my book. It's available on Amazon. So first of all, it is useful to know more about yourself, like who you are. It is also really helpful to know who you're dealing with. So when you're interacting with other people, we all tend to make the assumption that other people are like us. And let me tell you, that's not true. It's going to be true like 25% of the time. 25% of the time you're dealing with somebody like you. The other 75% you're not. And this can cause us a lot of frustration because we're like, why isn't this person being this way? Because they're not you. So in this system, like I said, there are 4 gemstones, and we each have a dominant gem, and then we have a secondary. The dominant gem is how you automatically are. It is who you are. You don't think about it. You don't try to be it. It's just there. Now a little so an analogy I came up with around the time I wrote my book was our dominant gem is our home. It's where we live. We're completely comfortable. We're at ease. It is normal for us. It's natural. We operate automatically. It takes no effort. Our secondary gem is like our neighborhood. It's nearby, quite familiar, but not as close as our home. The other 2 gems, for many of us, are like foreign countries. They're far away, hard to get to, very strange, and hard to understand. That is so true. So, here are the 4 gems, and as you're listening to the descriptions, think about, like, does this fit me or not? And then at the end, I'll kind of explain how to figure out what you are if you're still not quite sure. So the first gem is a ruby. Rubies are motivated by competition. They want to win, and they want to be in control. They can often come off as mean and bossy. They're often money and possession motivated. They're commonly into status and recognition, appearances. They're terrible losers, but they're not good winners either at times. And compassion does not come naturally to them. They must be taught a measure of it. Their weakness is their inability to work well with others. They can be easily threatened by someone who has someone as good or perhaps better than them in some way. Rubies will act like they are right all the time, and they're correct maybe half the time. Now, my personal observation, coming from a psychological perspective, is that competitively motivated people seem to be operating out of ego. And due to this, they're usually very strong-willed. So, it is hard to take on a ruby. It takes a lot of energy. It's tough. You can do it, but it's hard. They like a challenge. They like debate. They don't mind conflict. It doesn't bother them. It literally does not bother them. And I have verified that with many clients, children and adults. They don't mind having a fight with someone. Like, it does not keep them up at night. It doesn't upset them, doesn't bother them. Not really. And a ruby child is by far the most exhausting type of child to parent. Yes. They challenge everything. They just do. That's what they do. And I've also observed personally that rubies tend to be erratically emotional. One day they may argue passionately about something, and a week later they don't even seem to care about it. And that's weird. I'm not a ruby, so what? That doesn't make sense to me. Okay, so that's the first gem. Those are rubies. Pearls, and the gems are two pairs, two opposites. So opposite of a ruby is a pearl. Pearls are motivated by service to others. They want to help and save everyone, and the whales and trees too. Danny said that in her training, and I loved it. They're naturally kind, tender-hearted. Pearls are deeply emotional and in a very consistent way. Pearls are more of a behind-the-scenes kind of personality type. They don't generally like public recognition. Pearls are worker bees, workhorses. They tend to be. Their greatest weakness is an inability to stand up for themselves, and they need to learn how to be and then practice being assertive. Psychologically, I believe pearls operate out of their heart space. This is why I think they're often run over and crushed by other personality types. Heart energy is wonderful, but not always the toughest. Pearls tend to be peacemakers also, not wanting to cause problems or conflict. Conflict is difficult and frankly often painful for them, so they avoid it at all costs. Sadly, this allows others who don't mind conflict to more easily manipulate a pearl. In order to survive in the world full of other types, pearls must stand firm and be fierce about healthy boundaries, even if it's very hard for them. Pearl kids are a parent's dream, usually kind, compliant. Pearl kids can be emotionally crushed if they don't have a parent who understands and supports their tender hearts. So, ruby, pearl, those are opposites. The other pair of opposites are emeralds and sapphires. So, emeralds are individuals motivated by logic, facts, and information. These folks will often research topics exhaustively, extensively. They often have paralysis of analysis and will not take action. Emeralds are schedule-oriented, very time-conscious. They often work off calendars, generally have their personal affairs in good order, very good order. Their living spaces are usually orderly. The downside of emeralds, they're often perceived as cold and heartless. Emotions are simply not a part of how they process life or communicate with others. They can deliver very upsetting information to someone with no apparent awareness of why the other person becomes upset. I have seen this. I have seen emerald clients tell friends, family, loved ones very upsetting information and be genuinely confused about why their loved one's upset. Like they just don't understand. So in many cases, they're not trying to be cruel. They're really not. They just, feelings, like how somebody feels about something has nothing to do with what they're sharing. So they're just sharing. They're just telling the truth. It's a very interesting thing to see. From my observation, emeralds operate out of mind energy. As such, they can be very strong-willed. They're right a majority of the time, and they know it. So they're not being arrogant or prideful. They're just right. And they know they're right. But they can often come off to other people as being like full of themselves. Emerald kids can come off as disrespectful when they're just being logical. If you ask an emerald to do something stupid, illogical, or unreasonable, they simply will not. They just won't do it. This is different than the strong-willed defiance you get from a ruby child. So emeralds are the ones who often need very little to no human connection. These folks can be kind of lone wolves, and they're okay. Like they don't necessarily suffer from loneliness or being alone. They're good. And then the opposite of your emeralds are your sapphires. Sapphires are motivated by fun. These are typically extroverted, outgoing, party-type people. Sapphires have a big need for other people. They make friends everywhere they go. They're likable. They're often loud. They may dress brightly. The downside to this gem is that these folks live in chaos, generally speaking. They're usually late, often forget things. They can be rather unreliable or very unreliable. To be successful, they need to be taught order and discipline. So my observation, again, from psychological perspective, is sapphires live from spirit and soul. They often have a lot of energy, lots of creative ideas, and they're really fun to be around. Many kids who are dominant sapphires really struggle in the educational system. School was designed by and for emeralds. Think about it. Like school is, if you're an emerald, either dominant or secondary, you probably liked school. You may have loved it. It's predictable, it's structured. Yeah, it makes total sense. It does not work for a sapphire. Traditional education typically does not work for a sapphire kid. Pearls comply with school. Pearl kids, they're agreeable even if they don't like it. They show up, they do their work. Rubies like sports, so you can leverage a ruby kid because they're usually in sports. You can leverage them with their sports to get academic performance. But for sapphires, there is nothing about school that's fun. Nothing. Sapphire kids are often diagnosed with attention deficit disorder issues and then medicated. Now, sometimes it could be true, like they could have the disorder. But I also see that the school system really fails this particular personality type. They just do. If properly motivated. Now, this is the interesting thing. If properly motivated, a sapphire will get all the other kids doing the project and having fun. Like they are incredible. They have incredible ability to work with others and have a good time and help others have a good time. They're amazing people. Sapphires are naturally liked. They can often get a group engaged. Sapphire kids are fun to live with, but achievement or goals are never their natural tendency. And thus they can be very frustrating to parents, especially logical parents. So, as you've been listening to this, you might be going, oh, I know what I am. Or, oh my gosh, my partner's this, my kid is that. You know, that usually pops into people. So, if you think, if you're listening to this or reading it and going, oh, well, I'm kind of all of them. No, you're not. You're probably a pearl. Pearls tend to be like, oh, I'm all of it. No. Now, if you're trying to figure out, again, it goes to motivation. So why do you do what you do? If, when I was first learning this, I was like, well, like I'm kind of competitive. Like I want to do my best. And what I figured out, so I'm a pearl dominant. That was very clear. And then I was trying to figure out my secondary. I was like, well, I'm competitive. Like I want to excel and do well. But here's the thing. The difference between a ruby and an emerald is rubies compete against others. Emeralds compete against themselves or a standard. So for a ruby must have physical competition. Emeralds do not need that. So I'm an emerald second. I'm not a ruby. Because I want to win, but so I raise and show guinea pigs and rabbits, and so I go to shows. And obviously that's competition. But the issue is not, now believe me, I enjoy winning best of breed. That's opposite, or best opposite sex of breed. Like I enjoy winning my varieties. However, if I'm not getting the comments I want to get on my animals, then the win doesn't matter. Like if I were to win with what I consider a subpar animal, that wouldn't be very satisfying to me because I know it's not that good. But if I believe that my animal is good quality and then it wins, it like confirms my progress, my breeding program. A ruby just wants to win. They don't care. They don't care how they win. And I've worked with rubies who cheat. and they don't mind cheating. I'm not saying all rubies cheat. It's not true. My boyfriend's a ruby. He does not cheat. He has issues with people that cheat. So not every ruby's a cheater, but I have worked with folks that are like, yes, I must win no matter what, and I will cheat to do it. Like in cards and stuff. I don't know about the rest of their life. So when you're thinking about it, it's like, why do I get up in the morning? Why do I do what I do? Like, what feels good to me? Is it winning? Okay, you might be a ruby. Is it, I want to have fun? And think about like what you say and how you talk about things. Is it service to others? Is it kindness? Then you're probably a pearl. If it's, well, that's the reasonable thing to do, and this needs to make sense, and I need that information before I can make a decision, then you're probably an emerald. When we know this, first of all, when you know how you're motivated, then that helps you make better decisions in life. You know, if you're in a job that is not meeting your needs as far as your personal motivation, it's not going to work very well. If you're in relationships or in organizations that, again, is not like really working, if you're a pearl and you want to be of service to others, and you're in a group or in a job where you literally feel like you are doing no good for anyone, you're going to burn out. If you're a sapphire, if you're a fun-loving person, you probably can't sit in a cubicle all day. That is going to kill you. Literally, it's not going to work. So, and I mean, if you were an emerald and in a job where things were not logic-based, that would be really hard. A lot of emeralds are engineers, scientists, etc. A lot of rubies are salespeople. Makes sense. A lot of sapphires are in the arts. They do something creative. They do something artistic. And a lot of pearls are in service industries. Nurses, doctors, mental health workers. Yeah, go figure. Now, of course, you can be any personality type and be in a variety of jobs, but certain jobs lend themselves to certain personality types. So, I could talk for hours about gems because it's so simple and it's so useful. Once you know who you're dealing with, then you know how to approach them, how to communicate better, how to communicate more effectively. So I've got this chapter about the gems, which I read a good amount to you. I also have a section about how to approach each gem. I'm not going to get into that in this video because I'm already up to 17 minutes. I don't want it to be too long. But I've got information in my book about like how to approach different personality types. And I do also, in my book, have a specific chapter on chapter 6, how to raise a heart-centered kid. Because, of course, I'm a pearl, so my heart is with my pearl buddies and pearl children. So I did write a chapter specifically about how to nurture a pearl child, a heart-centered child. So there you go. I hope that is of interest and use to you. I have found it very useful over the years, both personally and professionally. So there you go. Have a good day.